launch of UKGBC Scotland. If I can thank Scottish Government and ICLEI for hosting us in the platform here, and obviously for the Minister for coming to help us launch today. There's been a lot of talk at COP over the last few days and in the build up around the idea of direction of travel. Are we setting ambitious enough targets? Are we setting them fast enough to deliver what we need on the road to net zero? And what's really clear to us at UKGBC is that Scotland's direction of travel is absolutely on point at the moment. You've set a 2045 net zero target, showing real ambition, going way beyond the curve, trying to show that there's a way to do these things to respond to the climate and ecological crises that we're facing. And slightly selfishly, as a green building advocate, the recognition of the built environment as a critical key to unlock the challenges of net zero, and the appointment of the UK's first zero carbon buildings minister alongside your active travel and tenants' rights portfolio is just a real marker in the sand for us about how seriously Scotland is taking this in the sustainable built environment. And in the spirit of this venue, the multi-level action pavilion, we, through the work we've done as UKGBC across the UK more generally over the last 10, 15 years, we're really aware that it's only through cooperation and co-creation of ideas and solutions between key actors across government, business and civil society that we stand a chance of delivering on these ambitions. So with no further ado, I'd like to hand over to my Chief Exec, Julie, who will set out what we're hoping to achieve and deliver through our launch of UKGBC Scotland today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Simon. So I just want to reiterate how delighted I am that we're launching this Scottish presence at COP on the global stage at COP26. We've very much been going all in for COP26 at UKGBC and really leveraging this particular moment in time to position the built environment very much as a source of solutions to the climate and nature crises that we face, and also to call on, of course, UK and world leaders to set the right tone and set ambitious and progressive policies and frameworks to really decarbonise all aspects of the built environment. So next week, we're going to be launching a net zero whole life carbon roadmap for the whole of the UK built environment. So that's very much built on a sort of data modeled exercise of all of the different levers we're going to need to pull in order to take all of the carbon, or virtually all of the carbon, out of absolutely every part of our built environment, and achieve that net zero carbon built environment by 2050. And of course, as Simon alluded to, here in Scotland, that date has been brought forward by 5 years. So there's an even more aggressive and ambitious decarbonisation pathway, and we're really excited to help support that in whatever way we can, and to have a presence here to do that. But I ought to start by telling you a little bit more about who we are and what we do, because some of you may not know that. So if I can have the next slide, please. We are a charity. We're about 13 years old, and our mission, as it says on the slide, is to radically improve the sustainability of the built environment. Now, by that, we mean all aspects of the built environment, all built assets, all buildings, infrastructure, cities, towns, and all stages of the life cycle. So this is a really, really broad and ambitious mission. And if you flick to the next slide, please, our vision is a built environment that enables people and planet to thrive. You'll need to, I think there's animation on the slides, so you'll need to just keep flicking. But most importantly, we're a membership organisation, and we're an industry network, and we're very much here to bring a very wide, fragmented and disparate sector together. So this is just an example illustrating the breadth of our membership. We have over 600 members at present. They span the whole of that built environment value chain, really from investors all the way through the construction supply chain and into sort of product manufacturing, developers, agents, valuers, banks, really, really broad. And we do that very, very purposefully because, we need to overcome these sort of vicious circles of blame, whereby each party blames the other for not actually achieving higher performance standards and performance outcomes. So we're really excited to be aiming to, many of our members have a strong presence here in Scotland, but we're really excited also to welcome new Scottish businesses on board and really to create that sort of local market-based kind of industry support. Next slide, please. So this just illustrates our theory of change. We very much we're all about collaboration, and it's fantastic to have CSIC and various others here today. We're very much not wanting to duplicate any existing effort that's going on in this space. So all about collaboration, but really in order to inspire and enable and advocate for accelerated leadership and action, primarily from government and business, but not solely, on the various issues that we think are most material to the built environment. So climate change mitigation and adaptation, of course, absolutely key, but also and inextricably linked aspects of resource efficiency, nature and biodiversity, health and well-being and quality of life for people. So the just transition and the sort of skills and jobs and of the future is very, very much a core part of what we believe in as well. These are the ways in which we achieve change, through training, learning, development, leadership programs, through huge amounts of sort of co-creating guidance toolkits and standards or definitions for the industry to adopt and run with, and also sharing that best practice, accelerating that learning journey, and not in it, not allowing everyone to reinvent the wheel. So again, really excited to be able to do that here in Scotland and really find local examples, local opportunities, and local case studies that really represent, the marketplace here in Scotland. Next slide, please. We are part of a network of 73, I think it is now, as of just yesterday, other global, other green building councils globally, and we're all members of a World Green Building Council. And I say that because it's just as important for us to share that best practice internationally and really have that, that global discourse. There's a really quite rapidly growing global momentum around green buildings and decarbonising the built environment, and our colleagues at the World Green Building Council are very much across that. So, we can tap into some of that and bring some of that here to Scotland, but also share some of the unique opportunities that are happening here in this context amongst that global network. Next slide, please. So really excited to be sort of, as I said, using this moment in time to launch our presence here. What does that mean in practice? We've already recruited and appointed one member of staff who will be boots on the ground here in Scotland. It will be our Scotland policy advisor, David Steen, and we are also recruiting a more member-facing candidate, who we haven't appointed yet, but just to say we're investing in people, and we very much want them to be based here supporting whatever initiatives are happening on the ground. We want to support in whichever way makes sense. So we'll be in active conversations with the Minister and his department, and with all of you and businesses in the region, really in order to understand what's most needed. Where are the challenges? Where are the opportunities? Where are the needs to collaborate and partner? So we're not coming with this is how we do it, elsewhere. We're really coming to listen and learn and understand what's required. As we have done across the UK, we will continue to convene that multidisciplinary network of players to come together and really focus on those partnerships and collaborations, and support government and industry wherever we feel we can. And on that note, before I hand over to the Minister, I would like to commend and celebrate the fact that the Scottish Government was one of the very first, actually, national governments to sign up to the World Green Building Council Net Zero Carbon Buildings Commitment. And we have a video of the Chief Executive of the World Green Building Council talking about just that. So if you could play the video, please, that would be great. I guess I need to put these back on.
Scotland signed the World Green Building Council's Net Zero Carbon Buildings Commitment as part of the Untitled Coalition in 2018, one of the first to do so, representing significant and pioneering leadership towards the sector's decarbonisation agenda. For policymakers, the commitment asks that they take action to enact regulations to require all new buildings to operate at net zero from 2030 and all existing buildings by 2050. In these few short years, Scotland has already taken great strides towards achieving this goal, as we were pleased to share in this year's Advancing Net Zero Status report. We are confident that through deep collaboration between UKGBC Scotland and the Scottish Government, we will be able to drive these ambitious net zero commitments and plans into actions across the building and construction industry. We hope that many more will follow this leadership.
carbon buildings, active travel, and tenants' rights, I believe. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Can I first of all thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak to you. And yes, I have one of the longest job titles in the Scottish Government. And another part of my portfolio this morning, I was speaking on active travel at a Cycling Scotland conference, and I was asked the question whether I'm the Minister for Carrots and somebody else has to deal with the sticks. I think on this agenda, it's very clear that we can't afford to have that kind of fragmentation between different kinds of incentives. We need a pretty holistic approach to achieving this, and I hope that's what we're going to achieve. So I'm really very happy to be with you, celebrating the launch of the UKGBC Scotland at COP26, and doing it here, having the launch of your Scottish arm here at COP is particularly significant. I know that you've worked tirelessly to get the UKGBC Scotland off the ground, so I want to offer my congratulations to Julie, Simon and the team to see that this has become a reality now. No doubt, as many people today and throughout this fortnight are saying, 5 years ago, the Paris Agreement came into force in an effort to limit global warming and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Let's be honest though, since then, the necessary progress has not been made. And that's why we're facing a global climate emergency. And we need all governments to turn those commitments into action to deliver radical and rapid reductions in our emissions that we desperately need. So what happens this week and next is critical. It is not our best chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. That was many years ago, but it might just be our last chance. So this conference brings together policymakers and delegates from across the world to work together and try and find those solutions. And we absolutely have to take the opportunity that it offers. We have to acknowledge as well that tackling the emissions associated with our built environment is completely critical in our transition to net zero. Our homes and workplaces alone account for around a fifth of Scotland's total greenhouse gas emissions. And that simply has to be addressed if we're going to meet the climate change targets that have been set unanimously across the political spectrum in Scotland. In the immediate term alone, that means over 1 million homes and the equivalent of 50,000 non-domestic buildings being converted to use zero emissions heating systems by the end of this decade, as well as achieving the energy efficiency levels that are necessary if we're going to make the most of those new heating systems. So in an effort to address this and our longer term targets as well, I'm pleased to say that the Scottish Government published our heat and building strategy last month. It's a strategy that sets out our vision for the future of heat in Scotland's homes and commercial buildings, both new and existing, and the measures that we're taking to ensure that this vision is realised. Over the next 5 years, we'll invest at least £1.8 billion in heat and energy efficiency projects across Scotland to drive the level of change that we need to see. That will help catalyse the expansion of zero emissions heat supply chains, providing a stimulus and will also support those who are least able to pay. To underscore that commitment and to give assurances to the supply chain, to mortgage lenders, to building owners and so on, and to secure the investment that we need, the strategy confirms that we intend to introduce primary legislation to create a framework of regulations for all buildings, encompassing both energy efficiency and zero emission heating standards. It also sets out clear timescales for achieving that, with new buildings leading the way from 2024, and from 25, we'll phase out the need to install new or replacement fossil fuel boilers in off-gas areas, with on-gas areas following suit in 2030. We'll also be making sure that all of our homes are energy efficient, achieving at least the equivalent of EPC-C by 2033. The introduction of these regulations will greatly accelerate the shift to greener buildings across the country and will continue to be backed by ongoing government programmes to ensure a just transition for the most vulnerable and in particular for fuel poor households. There's no doubt the scale of this challenge is enormous, but there are also real opportunities to be grasped. Those include the creation of green jobs in a burgeoning clean heat sector, new skills and training, and greener and more efficient homes and workplaces across Scotland. There's some excellent work already in progress with many organisations throughout Scotland delivering zero emission heating systems. And I knew I shouldn't rely on the technology. Delivering energy efficient heating systems throughout Scotland. And in my capacity as Minister for Zero Carbon Buildings, I've already seen firsthand some of the work that's being done to decarbonise Scotland's building stock. Just over a month ago, for example, I visited the Nidri Road project on the south side of Glasgow. It's not far from where we are now. If you have a chance to visit while you're here, if you've got some time, it would be worthwhile. It's been supported by the Scottish Government's Social Housing Net Zero Fund, and it will see the retrofit of 8 pre-1919 sandstone tenements, the kind of buildings that make up a huge proportion of homes here in Glasgow, through improved building fabric measures and the installation of air source heat pumps. During the visit, I had the opportunity to speak to a number of the project partners involved in the delivery of this project, and hearing how it's going to compare 4 flats fitted with air source heat pumps against 4 using their existing gas boilers. And a key outcome of that project will be to determine how the findings can be replicated, either in whole or in part, across the pre-1919 tenement stock, which accounts for 20% of Scotland's homes. It's a project that's grappling with some of the really difficult challenges that we face in decarbonising our diverse building stock. But it has been great to witness the enthusiasm and expertise of those people who are investigating the most appropriate ways to overcome those challenges on our path to net zero. Now, that's why the creation of UKGBC Scotland is going to provide an important focal point for those organisations and experts who are already committed to delivering zero carbon buildings. And over the coming months, we'll be engaging with a range of expert stakeholders to work through the complexities around decarbonising multiple ownership and multiple use buildings like our tenements. Engagement with stakeholders, including all of you here today, is critical. Achieving our climate change targets is going to require close collaboration across government, industry, and the third sector. We're already seeing important progress in new buildings, installing zero emission heating systems ahead of the introduction of the new build heat standard in 2024. Our affordable housing supply programme continues to support affordable housing providers who want to install zero emission heating systems. And many providers are already doing just that, both in rural and urban settings across Scotland. And there are also examples of private developers already building to the highest standards of energy efficiency and zero emissions heating. We want to collaborate with the construction sector and its supply chains to deliver net zero carbon buildings. One such example of how effective collaboration can deliver real tangible results is the Edinburgh Home Demonstrator project. It's a project in cooperation between the Scottish Government, local government, industry and academia, who are working together to develop a new business model for the development of affordable homes that's better suited to the encouragement of off-site construction. And that approach is based on collaborative procurement, whole life costs and other transformational changes. It'll be demonstrated on around 1,000 new affordable homes across the Edinburgh City region, all built to net zero standards. This will be done by making greater use of off-site construction and maintaining Scotland's strong history of timber frame construction for virtually all new homes. The learning from that project will inform policy development as the Scottish Government works with its partners to achieve our net zero emissions targets and then net zero for all new affordable homes. The progress that we make in ensuring all new homes are net zero will be vital in then preparing for the even bigger challenge of retrofitting our existing buildings with zero emission heating systems from 2025. Being here today at COP must be a reminder to us all that collaboration to reach our net zero goals is a truly global effort. Scotland's always been at the forefront of cooperating internationally with partners to tackle the decarbonisation of heating buildings. And as you've mentioned, we were one of the first governments to sign up to the World Green Building Council's net zero carbon buildings commitment in 2018. And our partnership with Denmark also saw significant exchange visits between local and central government, business and academia to exchange best practice on heat network development. We want to continue our international outreach to tackle this challenge head on, working together on the technical, financial and regulatory issues needed to transform the world's building stock. The challenge to achieve this, to transition to truly net zero buildings, is huge, and it represents a significant shift away from what has traditionally been considered business as usual. We all need to work together to ensure that we can overcome those challenges, and UKGBC Scotland will provide an excellent opportunity to discuss the ideas and drive forward the changes required. We have to ensure that we build on the momentum that's generated over the course of this fortnight. And so I want to use this opportunity to invite you all to continue to work with the Scottish Government and others to find the solutions we need, decarbonise our built environment in a way that works for everyone. And I'm very confident that UKGBC Scotland will play an important role in bringing everyone together across a diverse sector to achieve these shared goals. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Minister. That was excellent to hear your plans in much more detail. And, it was obviously really good to see yesterday when Antonio Gutierrez from the UN singled out Scotland for praise in terms of the ambition and the way it was addressing things, not just setting the ambition and the targets, but sort of understanding the level of detail and planning and all the layers that are going to be needed. And it was great to see him sort of put Scotland on the pedestal yesterday as part of that. And you mentioned Nidri Road, which is a project close to our heart as well. If I can just take a little moment for a shout out, UKGBC, along with about 100 other partners from across industry in the UK, has developed the Build Better Now virtual pavilion, which is an exemplar showcasing global best in practice sustainable building projects from around the world, as well as a seminar program focusing on all the issues that we're addressing today. And Nidri Road is one of the projects that was selected by an international panel of judges for inclusion in that pavilion. So for anyone who hasn't been in there yet, the Build Better Now virtual pavilion is very, very well worth an inspiring visit. You used the word radical, and that's embedded right in the center of our mission at UKGBC, and it's clear that's the sort of approach that we're going to need to drive this forward. And what's also clear is that the old school ways of working aren't going to give us the intelligent solutions for the future that we need. We're going to need a smarter blend of new techniques, new materials, new skills, and new ways of collaborative working. And I'm pleased to say that the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre have absolutely excelled in that up here in Scotland over the last few years. And I'd like to introduce Stephen Good, the Chief Executive of CSIC, to tell us a little bit more about what they've been doing and how we'll move things forward.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Julie, Simon, for the invitation to join the panel today and talk to you. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, as Simon said, my name is Stephen Good. I am Chief Executive at the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. We are Scotland's National Innovation Centre for the built environment. We are part of, as Mr. Harvey described there, part of the network, the ecosystem, I suppose, of support mechanisms that exist across Scotland. We're one of 7 innovation centres that exist across Scotland to support businesses in different sectors, working with our academic partners in Scotland, the world leading academic partners in Scotland, to help drive forward. In our case, our mission is around how we accelerate the built environment's transition to net zero. And Nidri Road, as an example, although too late now for the shout out, but we were running tours there yesterday from the Innovation Factory. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of other opportunities for people to engage with that project. A very quick high level summary of CSIC for those that aren't familiar with us. We were formed in 2014, as I say, as part of a wider programme of innovation centres. We have been on this mission for 7 years with sustainable building products, systems, approaches, service models, business models sitting right at the heart of what we have been supporting the construction and built environment ecosystem in Scotland to deliver. And I'm pleased to say that in that time we have had the privilege of working on over 400 projects with a whole range of industry and academic partners that have already saved over 6 million tonnes of carbon emissions through the innovation activity that those businesses have subsequently deployed. And some of the quick examples, and Niddry Road's a great one, the Edinburgh Homes Demonstrator is another project we've been involved in for a number of years in the background research that the university partners were involved in establishing the need for projects like that, and then working with a range of partners to deliver that project. But we work right across that spectrum of products, processes, business and service models. And in the product space, supported by our innovation factory, which is about 12 miles from where we are today at Hamilton Technology Park. We've turned that during COP into an exhibition space. So we have activity there every day that you're more than welcome to come and visit. We run tours, events, exhibitions throughout the fortnight, and that gives everybody an opportunity to see some of those innovation products and outcomes in practice. So we're not starting from a blank sheet of paper. COP26 isn't a starting point necessarily for where we're at. We've already been on this journey with businesses like Kenneltech, a Scottish startup business that's developed, we think, the world's first 95% recycled brick made from hard to treat waste construction materials. We've also been supporting businesses like Nature, who are a Scottish company that make sustainable insulation out of hemp, and have just been supported by the Scottish National Investment Bank to set up their enhanced manufacturing capability in the borders of Scotland. But we also work with big companies, big organisations that are looking at their net zero strategies and how they can embed that within their organisation and work right throughout the supply chain. So pleased to say this afternoon, if I can get out of here and security wise quickly enough, Balfour Beatty's senior team, including their chief exec for the UK, is coming to their innovation hub that's at our innovation factory to showcase the sort of work they're doing around digital technologies to help them enable greater flexibility, greater connectivity across all of their construction activity, and embedding processes that they'll use right throughout their entire supply chain to drive this accelerated transition towards net zero. Ecosystems Technologies is another business that I'll mention, who are an Invergordon-based organisation who work in that off-site manufacturing space that the Minister spoke about earlier, but very much around how do we enhance the capability of Scotland's homegrown natural resources. And again, as the Minister touched on, timber has been our traditional building material for many, many years. Our Scottish timber, unfortunately, is not always used for the most high value solutions, and that's something that we're working very hard at the Innovation Centre to change, and by taking that product up the value chain and looking at engineered solutions around cross-laminated and glue-laminated timber, where we have some unique equipment at the Innovation Factory that companies like Ecosystems Technologies have turned into a first at the space as well. So if you do have the chance to come out, you'll see the first homegrown CLT building that's manufactured to net zero standards. You can walk around it, you can touch it, you can get a sense of that experience. You can see net zero today effectively. So it's not about what we need to design for the future. We already have some of those solutions here with us today, and it's great to be able to showcase just how those solutions are impacting on things. Julie touched on the global aspect of the GBC community, and yesterday we were joined by the UN Economic Commission for Europe's Executive Secretary, the Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero at Scottish Government, to launch the High Performing Buildings Initiative Centre of Excellence community, of which we were invited to be the Scotland partner. And that allows us to bring our network of industry and academic partners into a wider global network, linking in again to the wider UKGBC network through the Scotland team that will be in place soon. And I think that gives us a really great proposition in terms of how we bring some of the great innovation that's going on in Scotland, share it with their partners internationally, and equally learn from them. Julie touched on collaboration, and for me, I think the opportunity, collaboration sits right at the heart of innovation for us as an innovation centre. It wouldn't be a surprise to anybody to hear me say that. And innovation, I think, sits right at the heart of that kind of change process that unlocks new value. And for us, there is really no greater imperative to change than the climate crisis and the nature crisis that we're currently witnessing. And I think the UKGBC Scotland opportunity to help us and other key stakeholders unlock that new value, whether it's social, whether it's economic, or whether it's environmental, is a real opportunity not to be missed. So delighted to be invited along today to join in the launch of UKGBC Scotland. Really looking forward to partnering with the team and supporting as we can, whether it's around product innovation, whether it's around who to speak to in this context, and make sure we join up as many opportunities as possible. So, so thank you again. Thank you for listening, and back to you, Simon. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Stephen. I'm definitely getting a warm glow from all the kind words that we're getting. I think, you know, as Julie noted, next week in the Blue Zone here again, we're launching our whole life carbon roadmap. And, you know, I won't go into the detail on that. Julie's already sort of given the sort of descriptor on what that will contain, but one picture which it paints very, very clearly, and the minister's already alluded to it with real clarity as well, is that the deep decarbonisation of our existing homes is an enormous chunk of any drive to get us towards that net zero target. And what's equally important in getting us there is that we do so in a fair and equitable way. And I'm sitting opposite a poster saying that Scotland's just transition promises a greener, fair and more resilient future. And I think that is absolutely key as we look at that component about how do we address the carbon performance of our homes across people with all sorts of income brackets in different sectors in the community. And it's a really tough nut to crack. But I'm delighted to say that our final panelist is Elizabeth Layton, the Director of Existing Homes Alliance Scotland. And she's been sitting at the centre of that drive for a mass Scottish retrofit programme for a long time. And I think if we can get Elizabeth on, great. Hello, Elizabeth. I shall hand over to yourself.
Right. Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here, and if remotely, and to be part of the launch of the UKGBC Scotland office at COP26, as you say, so appropriate, given the role that buildings are going to play in Scotland's net zero transition. As Simon said, the Existing Homes Alliance has we've been around for probably about 10 years working on this agenda and working closely with UKGBC in their London office. So I know and look forward to a strong partnership with you in the next months and years to come. As I said, we've been arguing that everyone in Scotland should have a warm, affordable to heat and low carbon home. And this means upgrading. The focus really needs to be on our existing homes, because 80% of the homes we live in today will still be homes in 2045. And we can do this, much of it with readily available technologies or materials that we know work and have a good track record. This is one of the easiest and most effective ways that we can tackle the climate crisis and make fuel poverty and our cold, damp and drafty homes in Scotland a thing of the past. And this really is just transition in action, creating thousands of quality jobs all over Scotland, improving our health and well-being and reducing inequalities. As we've heard from the Minister, the Scottish Government's heat and building strategy has set out very ambitious targets, but also with a plan to reach them. And it's really important to say that that strategy includes just transition principles. And in speaking with officials and meeting recently, it's more than just principles. This is really a promise that nobody's going to be put at disadvantage from the heat transition. So they know it might cost a bit more in the short term. For example, it might mean more and better insulation, solar, energy storage alongside a heating technology to make sure that the running costs aren't going to be higher than what they're paying already. And it means that nobody is going to be left behind and no one's home will be put in that too difficult box, which has often happened in the past. On the contrary, many of those people will be at the front of the queue of the low carbon transition. I think it's really important to highlight how much emphasis is put on insulation, on that fabric first approach in the strategy, so that low carbon heating is going to be cheaper to run and install and less of a load on the grid. We're lucky here in Scotland that we have good energy efficiency and fuel poverty programs to build on, including efforts to build up local supply chains and develop heat networks. All of this needs to be rapidly ramped up alongside the setting of clear standards that the Minister mentioned, so people know what they have to do and when they need to do it. I'll wrap up with just a couple of anecdotes. It just so happened a neighbor contacted me yesterday. I live in a rural area and they're doing up their house and they wanted to know, how can we connect to the gas grid? And I've refrained from saying, haven't you been listening to the news? But we will be giving them advice about how they can be seeking a lot of the government support that's available right now for them to fund heat pumps and energy efficiency measures. Another story is, I mentioned when we had a plumber over, I said, oh, you'll be learning to install heat pumps next. And he said, oh, that'll be 30 years away and I'll be retired by then. So it's clear we have a really long way to go before people believe that low carbon heating is their first and best choice. And we don't have a lot of time. So leveling the playing field, making it easy and fair to meet standards, and promoting all of this with a huge engagement campaign, not just a communications campaign, but tailored engagement for all the different people, households, such that we need to reach, is necessary. I think that Scotland can really be a world leader here, and already other parts of the UK and European countries are envious of our bold targets and plans, and it's such an exciting time to be part of this. So we look forward to working with UKGBC, also CSIC and others to help turn those plans into what we need: warm, affordable to heat and low carbon homes for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. That's great. That the challenge, the opportunity, and the imperative around the sort of the people focus are really clear there. And additionally, you echoed it there, but the focus on energy efficiency in Scotland's heat and building strategy was very, very clear, really promising. It's also fair to say it was less evident in the UK's heat and building strategy, which maybe took a lighter touch approach to energy efficiency, which was disappointing. Confidence in the market as we deliver on this is going to be key. And I think the heat and building strategy that's come out from Scottish Government will really do a lot to inject that necessary confidence, clarity, and coherence into the plans. I'll come out to the floor for some questions in a moment, but before I do, if I can just kick one off with the Minister, if that's okay. I guess just thinking about that market confidence and confidence right across the sort of public and private sectors, what sort of role do you feel that what we're actually doing here at COP over those 2 weeks, what does this do in terms of that longer term delivery of what are, decade-long plans and actions that we do?
Thanks very much. I suppose I feel a little bit conflicted whenever people ask me about the COP itself and what I think it can achieve, because as I said, this is not the moment, this is not the best time to be making these changes. The best time was decades ago. And if we had started making a lot of the changes that we're talking about 10, 20, 30 years ago, they could have been done slowly and easily and probably more cheaply. We're only in a climate emergency now because we didn't take that action, not just in Scotland, but globally. We didn't take that action on the timescale that should have been taken. So the task before us is now huge and really, really urgent as a result of that. I suppose I'm conscious that in less than 2 weeks, the circus will have left town. And I'm concerned about what does its absence, what does the period after the COP mean in terms of our domestic delivery? Because whether there is a great, fantastic deal and a lot of razzmatazz and world leaders waving pieces of paper saying, look what we've achieved, or a damp squib and people being very disappointed, there is a real danger. On the one hand, a danger of complacency, and on the other hand, a danger of defeatism. We cannot give in to either of those, because whatever the result of the COP, our task in practical terms is still the same. It's to crack on with the work needed to get rapid, fast and fair reductions in our emissions. So yeah, I'm positive about the potential of this COP as an energizing catalyst within our domestic conversation on climate. But whatever happens, we need to avoid the dangers of complacency or defeatism and crack on with getting the work done.
Thank you very much, Minister. The can-do attitude is exactly what we need. Can I just take a moment to see if we have any questions from the crowd? We've obviously heard quite a lot around ambition and plans and what we're hoping to do with UKGBC Scotland. Joe or someone in the desk. I'm not sure how we take questions from the floor. I guess this gentleman just shouts out. Does the mic has to go?
Is my, can you hear me okay? Yeah. I'm representing the, now I see why you're taking your headphones off. I'm representing the RIAS. We think that one of the keys to unlocking refurbishment of existing buildings is to deal with VAT. And I just wonder what your thoughts were about VAT on refurbishment of existing buildings.
Sorry, yes.
Just a very practical question. Are we training enough joiners, plumbers, building engineers, etc.? Because we've got the technology and we have the ambition. Do we have the people to do the job?
Hi, I'm Leslie from Loudest Foundation. Thanks for the invite. We're doing a lot of work around bringing wood and nature back into buildings. So I loved the reference to CLT. Would love to hear your perspective of, do you think the future is building with nature? Or do you think it's looking at trying to make steel, concrete less bad?
Thank you very much. There's quite a neat divvying up of the answers to those, I think. Minister, would you like to kick us off with thoughts on the VAT question?
We would like control of VAT. Yes, please, and thank you very much. I mean, it's an argument that's been put time and time and time again for many, many years. The pre-Brexit response was, we can't devolve this because European rules require a single approach across an EU member state. Whether you accept that argument or not, it was the one that was put at the time. Well, you know, as someone, I don't want to bang the constitutional drum too much at this. I know that's not appropriate for this event, but you know, as someone who was against leaving one union and for leaving the other, and now having to live with the opposite outcome of what I was looking for, can we surely now take the opportunity of being able to change the VAT rules and allow Scotland to make some of those decisions? If the UK wants to do it, then let them. But at the moment, I don't see the scale of ambition on this whole agenda yet from the UK government. I hope it will come, but if they're not willing to act, then I would encourage them to allow us to move forward with that.
Sure. So I'll provide answers to 2 or 3 of those questions. So we've been calling very strongly for the UK government to eliminate VAT on retrofit and refurbishment projects. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't incentivize the right behaviors. I think it connects actually to the question on the building materials, because the huge elephant in the room is the embodied carbon in both construction and upfront carbon in you know, materials manufacture, transportation and production generally. So there is as yet a lack of clarity on when we're going to start seeing some of that coming in. And of course, that leads you down a route, if you start to measure whole life carbon emissions of new construction and existing projects, of looking at reuse and adaptability and flexibility and building for much longer life you know, spans. So I think you know, all of those aspects are inextricably related. We absolutely need to look at them at a more systemic level. And on the buildings material thing, you know, I wouldn't pit both of those things against one another. I would say we need absolutely every tool in the toolbox. So we need both. We need to be building with new and innovative types of materials. We need to be building with natural materials. And it's fantastic to hear some of the work that's being done by CSIC to sort of, you know, innovate on the product side. And we need to rapidly decarbonize the incumbent materials that we use so widely. So I think we absolutely need both of those things.
Thank you, Julie. Stephen, do you want to weigh in on the skills and the natural materials?
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, I mean, I'll start in reverse order. So on the materials side, I would echo Julie's point. I mean, we really need both. We're not going to have a built environment in the future that isn't going to need concrete and isn't going to need steel. So we need those sectors to be decarbonising as best they can. And we're working on some projects to look at how we decarbonise cement production and change those sorts of things. We're quite, we're agnostic as an innovation centre, although if you do come, you'll see a lot of wood, and that's because I think a lot of industry partners recognise the role that natural materials, regenerative materials in that sense will play in our future. So yes, absolutely, decarbonise the materials that are perhaps a little tougher to use and don't have the carbon footprint that we're looking for just now, but maximise the opportunity, pulling the right political and policy levers if possible to incentivise and encourage the use of the materials that we want to see and disincentivise perhaps the ones we don't, which will encourage those bits of the industry to figure out how to really tackle the challenges that they're faced with. So yeah, I think the broader piece is we're going to need everything, I guess, and in a wider context, the built environment is everywhere. It impacts every single one of us. So we're going to have to make sure we can really push as hard as we can and as fast as we can on that journey. To the skills piece, I think a simple answer is no, we don't have enough. But the slightly more nuanced answer, I suppose, is do we have the structures and the processes in place to create the diversification of skills that we're going to need, the multi-skilled capability that we're going to need if we're talking about off-site manufacturing. As an example, it's not the traditional skill sets necessarily that you would have in even a semi-automated production facility in that sense. So we need different sorts of skills, and we need, as an industry, to be in there fighting in that talent war to be attracting the best talent into the industry. Now, whether that's coming from the next generation of talent that's going to be coming into the industry, and we need to make sure as an industry we are not, often people have said to me we're perceived as an industry that pushes wheelbarrows around muddy building sites, and that I doubt is an attractive proposition for anybody leaving school. But if we want to make sure we're attracting all ranges of capability into this industry, we have to change how flexible we are as an industry, how inclusive we are as an industry. There's a lot of work to be done, but we also have, I think, a huge opportunity in that skill space. When you look at sectors like oil and gas, for example, that are going to have to, that are part of the just transition, is where could those skills be deployed? And I think construction built environment space is a ripe opportunity for those transferable skills to come over into our space. I think CITB launched some data not that long ago saying we need about 60,000 additional employees in the sector. I think that was every year. That might be quite a large number. I maybe got that wrong, but 60,000 new entrants into the workforce. That's a huge opportunity if we can identify the right sorts of roles and create that approach to really being an attractive place for people to want to cut. I mean, it's a fantastic industry. It's got so many amazing routes that you can work in it, but I don't think people know that. I certainly know from my kids who are at early secondary school age, they don't get pushed towards a built environment, and they need to.
I just wanted to echo that point, because that was very much one of the reasons why Simon's already mentioned the Build Better Now platform that we and hundreds of other partners, including WorldGBC, have built. And the real reason for that was to showcase the art of the possible, and this point about, this sector is where many of the solutions to the climate and nature crises will come. And those younger generations are really passionate about environmental and social issues, and they won't be perceiving this sector necessarily as the source of those solutions. So I think if we can change the narrative and the way in which we illustrate what this sector is all about, that's one of the ways of bringing them in and getting them excited about a built environment of the future that looks really, really different, and that is, really innovative and yeah.
Thanks, Julie. It minds me to remember a story of one of the top 10 biggest house builders in the UK who said, we don't need to worry. We don't do anything different than we did 50 years ago, except we now have a machine that mixes our cement. And it's just about that, not getting that attitude, mind shift that we need across the industry, that it's not just those site jobs, it's jobs in precision engineering, it's jobs in creative design, it's jobs in programming and building information modeling. And it really is quite a dramatic shift in that skills and training pathway from school upwards that we need to see. And I know that colleagues in Scottish Government are already looking at this in earnest. I guess just to sort of, I think we're nearly out of time. I just wanted to sort of raise one other question with the Minister, because I think we've been engaging with the Scottish Cities Alliance recently, trying to make sure that we're understanding where we might be able to add value as UKGBC Scotland. And I think what's become quite clear is that Scotland, maybe more than any other country within the nations of the UK, the sort of demography, the topography of the land, and the challenges that each different city will face as it drives towards this are very different. You know, how we're going to get a net zero urban centre in Glasgow will be a very different solution than Stirling has to deliver. And I just wondered if the Minister might be able to sort of just talk us through maybe how the local authority, national government, and sort of stakeholders like ourselves might be able to help come together to address that really differing challenge that will come across the country.
Thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose the easy thing for me to do is to say these are questions I want to ask you, as well as, you know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've got all the answers. I don't think government should ever do that. But yeah, the need for culture change across the industry is going to be really important. The kind of people who will come along to the UKGBC Scotland launch, or join up, or be involved, or be at an event like this, are probably not where the bad practice is, and there is still a huge amount of bad practice in construction and building, and we need to engage with the whole industry, not just the enthusiasts, not just the people who see this as an opportunity agenda, but also those who see it as somebody mentioned, that what the next generation will think about. And in terms of the different building stock, you know, if I reflect on my own experience, I live in one of those old sandstone tenements. It's lovely, well maintained, well looked after tenements, are great places to live. Mine has mixed tenure. The factor is the social landlord. They still are the landlord of some of the properties. I'm an owner occupier in the same block. So you've got tenancy, social tenancy, you've got some private sector tenancies in the similar buildings, and you've got some social landlords. So you've got mixed tenure. It's a mixed use building. The ground floor, I'm on a main road, so the ground floor are all shops. How do we apply the same regulations? How do we bring people along at the same time? These are immense challenges, and that's just on one street. These multifaceted challenges. So, you know, I think the most important thing that we can do is work together and ask these questions collectively of the whole sector, of local government as well as national, and try and get that culture change. And the last thing I wanted to say was on the question that I didn't touch on about building materials as well, because Julie mentioned that it's a climate and nature emergency. We have to be thinking about the impact on our life support system, of where building materials come from and how they're used during their lifetime. Everything from the impact on the environment from mining, and if we're going to use steel and concrete, that's going to have an impact even if we're reducing energy consumption. So we need to reduce that, as well as ensuring that we're producing sustainable materials in genuinely sustainable ways, and even down to the tiny little touches like making our buildings suitable for the birds and the bees, you know, that we need to see thriving in our urban environment as well as rural. So yeah, sorry, that was a canter through more than you asked me, but it's a challenge that I think we're up for, and we're ready to move as fast and ambitiously as we can.
Thank you very much, Minister. I realise I've made the incredibly amateurish mistake as the chair in the world of hybrid events of forgetting the fact that Elizabeth is over my shoulder and not bringing her in enough to the questions. So I guess just Elizabeth, just to help round us off for a minute or so, just I guess reflections from yourself with an existing homes retrofit hat on. Obviously, that sort of skills question and the VAT point are real pinch points in our ability to deliver efficiently there. And just any reflections from yourself on those before we wrap up would be great.
Sure, I'll be very quick, and I'll forgive you, Simon, later. You can get me a drink or something. It's just on. I think what's really important is the regulatory picture. Is that, as the minister stated, is that they do intend to regulate, and there will be an all tenure approach to that. So hopefully that will help address some of the mixed tenure issue. And I think until people really understand that there will be regulation, it will apply to them, they need to find out how they can get ready to comply. then the likes of the plumbers and, you know, such, the like the one I spoke to, they're not going to believe it. But once they do believe it, they will respond, you know, in business will respond, and then they will take up the training and skills opportunities that are being provided. So I think that's such an important piece to get the communications going on. You know, there are standards are coming, you need to get ready. We have a customer journey to make it easy and fair, to make it easy for you. And we have a customer journey that's tailored to your situation. Will be so important. And that's why I think it's also great that the minister has tenants' rights here as well, because it's not just about owners and landlords or commercial landlords, but it's about tenants too, because they deserve to be part of this journey to making sure their home is warm and affordable to heat. So I'll stop there because I know you're very tight for time.
That's great. Elizabeth, thanks for the, sorry, hearing myself in my own ears. Thanks, Elizabeth. That's a really good roundup. Just leaves me to say thank you very much to everyone coming who's here physically. And I hope we've got big numbers that have dialed in via the hop-in link on the virtual platform. And thank you very much, Minister, for coming along today. It's really valuable, and I hope it's the beginning of a long working relationship. And thank you to Julie, Elizabeth, and Stephen for coming on as panelists. Cheers.
Hi, thanks for the invites.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, you too. Yeah, well done.